It is time for the truth to speak. And I need you to listen very carefully, because what I am about to share with you will fundamentally rewrite everything you thought you knew about the most explosive royal scandal of our lifetime. Prince Harry has been spotted removing his wedding ring for the first time, a moment so small and yet so seismic that the entire world of celebrity journalism and royal commentary has been thrown into a state of breathless, disbelieving paralysis. That single, simple act, the deliberate sliding of a band of Welsh gold off his left hand, signals the end of a fairy tale romance that was already fraught with controversy from the very first moment it captured the global imagination. While Meghan remains silent, cocooned behind the pristine walls of their California estate, Harry has been discovered making clandestine, late-night telephone calls to King Charles and to his brother William, calls that are not angry, not defiant, but saturated with a desperate, almost childlike pleading that those closest to the situation describe as utterly heartbreaking. Is the prodigal son repenting? Is he begging for protection from the very royal family he publicly eviscerated just a few short years ago? The underlying cracks in Harry's last-minute, breathless attempts to turn everything around, to somehow reverse the irreversible, will be laid bare in today's special report. And I promise you, the question that will haunt you long after you finish watching is this: will William accept his forgiveness? Or is the chasm between the brothers now so deep that no amount of evidence can ever bridge it? For Harry, the revelation of these documents did not just spark a domestic argument over a forgotten detail or a heated disagreement about the past. It triggered something far more catastrophic. It triggered a total systemic failure of his belief system, the complete and utter collapse of the internal architecture that had supported every single choice he has made since the year 2016. For nearly a decade, Harry has operated under the unshakable conviction that he was rescuing a misunderstood, persecuted woman from the cold, unfeeling machinery of the British monarchy. He believed, with every fiber of his being, that he was the knight in shining armor, correcting the tragic mistakes of the past, shielding Meghan from the exact same fate that befell his late mother, Princess Diana, in that tunnel in Paris in August of 1997. He told himself every single day that he was breaking the cycle, that he was the one man in the entire Windsor lineage who would not fail his wife. But as the details of the Engelson dossier began to filter through his private legal channels, the Duke of Sussex was forced to confront a reality far more destabilizing than any tabloid attack, any screaming front-page headline, any vicious social media pile-on. He was forced to sit alone in the quiet of his study and ask himself a question so painful that the mere asking of it made his hands shake. Was the victim he had sacrificed everything for, his family, his military honors, his very birthright, in fact, the architect of a brilliant, decade-long performance, a methodical, pre-planned campaign of emotional and strategic manipulation designed to elevate her into the highest echelons of global power? The first visible cracks in Harry's resolve appeared in late March of 2026, and they did not arrive quietly. Staff members at the Montecito estate reported a series of wall-shaking confrontations that lacked the usual heat of passion, the familiar rhythm of a couple arguing and then reconciling. Instead, these confrontations carried the icy clinical weight of a legal interrogation. Harry, driven by a desperate, almost primal need for the unvarnished truth, began demanding an accounting of every missing month, every sealed record, every inexplicable gap from Meghan's life in the early 2000s. The focal point of his obsession, the period that now keeps him awake at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling, became known in hushed tones among his private advisors as the Northwestern Gap. For years, a quiet, persistent rumor had circulated in the darker, more obsessive corners of royal commentary, a rumor so incendiary that most mainstream journalists refused to touch it. It concerned a short-lived, impulsive, and extremely private legal union during Meghan's time at Northwestern University in 2003, a union that was allegedly annulled and surgically removed from civil records through high-level legal maneuvering that would have required both significant financial resources and a deep understanding of jurisdictional loopholes. While Harry had previously dismissed such talk as the poisonous product of toxic internet trolls, the evidence now surfacing through the Engelson dossier suggests a catastrophic loophole in the MI5 and MI6 vetting process of 2017. Harry is now reportedly grappling with the soul-crushing realization that he may have personally pressured the royal household, browbeaten senior courtiers, and publicly shamed the palace apparatus into bypassing standard security protocols for a personal history that was far more complex, far more layered, and far more legally precarious than he was ever led to believe. In a move that has sent shockwaves through their remaining social circles in Los Angeles and beyond, Harry has begun to physically and symbolically detach himself from every aspect of the life they constructed together. He has reportedly spent the last 3 weeks residing almost exclusively in the detached guest quarters of the Montecito estate, a separate building with its own entrance and its own cold, anonymous silence, or in a private, high-security wing of a nearby luxury hotel where he registers under an assumed name. This unilateral relocation has effectively ended the cohabitation that was once the glittering, photographed symbol of their great love story, a story that now feels to Harry like a novel someone else wrote and forced him to read. Most tellingly, those few individuals who have managed to get close to the Duke in recent days, trusted former protection officers and a handful of old friends from his military days, have noticed a glaring omission on his left hand. The gold wedding band, a piece of jewelry that Harry has worn with almost religious consistency since the day he placed it on Meghan's finger in May of 2018, is gone. And I want you to really absorb what that means. This is not the accidental omission of a man who forgot his ring at the gym. This is not a piece of jewelry sent away for cleaning. This is a calculated, silent, devastating declaration of a man who feels at the deepest level of his being that he has been married to a mirage, to a hologram, to a woman who never actually existed, described by those close to him, those who have seen him in unguarded moments, as a paralyzing, almost catatonic psychological shock. He is a man who burned every single bridge behind him with the ferocity of a wildfire. His family, his military honors, his national identity, his lifelong friendships, only to discover that the beautiful, distant shore he thought he was swimming toward was a fabrication, a painting on a studio backlot. The realization that he may have been a pawn, a high-value asset in a long-term social ascent strategy, rather than an equal partner in a genuine soulmate connection, has pushed him into a state of profound and terrifying isolation. He is no longer fighting the British press. That battle feels like a childish squabble now. He is fighting the crushing, suffocating weight of his own choices, choices that now replay in his mind on a merciless loop every single night. As the Engelson dossier reaches the King's desk at Buckingham Palace, Harry's primary objective has shifted entirely from public defense, from the curated Instagram posts and the carefully worded statements, to private survival. He is no longer protecting Meghan. He is desperately trying to excavate the man he was before he became a character in someone else's script, before his identity was absorbed into a brand he no longer controls and no longer trusts. This is not just a marital dispute, and please do not let anyone convince you otherwise. This is the beginning of the definitive end for the entire Sussex brand, and it is being orchestrated with exquisite and tragic irony by the very man who once swore before the altar of St. George's Chapel to be its greatest and most ferocious champion. Harry is waking up, and the very first thing he is doing, the only thing his shattered mind can focus on, is looking for a way out. But you need to understand that what comes next is so much darker than a simple separation. The psychological fortress that Prince Harry built around his new life in California, a fortress of Zen gardens and infinity pools and teak wood decks, began to crumble not from an external assault by the tabloids he so despises, but from the internal rot of a secret long buried in the manicured lawns of an American university campus. By mid-April of 2026, the Duke of Sussex found himself completely and utterly obsessed with a specific period of time, a temporal black hole that predated his royal romance by nearly 15 years. The focus of his mounting paranoia and his deep-seated, visceral hurt centered on the year 2003 and the hallowed, ivy-covered halls of Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois. For years, Harry had accepted and publicly championed the narrative of a self-made woman, a bootstrap success story who rose from a struggling actress doing calligraphy on the side to a global humanitarian through sheer grit, talent, and an indomitable spirit. However, the Engelson dossier allegedly contains a chapter that Meghan Markle had meticulously scrubbed from every official record, every biographical timeline, every carefully curated interview. That chapter details the existence of a high-speed, impulsive legal union that ended as quickly as it began, a union so efficiently erased that it left barely a ripple in the public domain. This was not merely a case of youthful indiscretion, a wild spring break mistake that could be laughed off decades later. For Harry, the implications were immediately, catastrophically, and constitutionally devastating. The rumors of this hidden union suggest a sophisticated legal maneuver executed in a jurisdiction where records could be sealed or annulled with clinical precision, effectively creating a pristine, clean slate for a young woman with soaring ambitions and an almost preternatural understanding of how to curate her own image. When Harry reflects now on the frantic, feverish days of 2017, the memory carries a bitter, metallic aftertaste that makes him physically nauseous. At that time, he had been the ultimate and most combative advocate for his future wife. He had sat in the ornate sitting rooms of Kensington Palace and fiercely, angrily demanded that the senior courtiers and the intelligence officers of MI5 and MI6 accelerate their background checks, that they stop dragging their feet, that they stop treating the woman he loved like a potential threat. He had framed any delay, any request for a deeper inquiry, any raised eyebrow over an inconsistency as institutional bias, as racial prejudice, as the stuffy, outdated snobbery of a dying institution. He effectively weaponized the palace's mortal fear of appearing unwelcoming, of generating another public relations disaster, to force them to close their files prematurely, to sign off on a sanitized version of a life story they had not been permitted to fully examine. He now realizes, in a series of cold, sweat-drenched epiphanies in the middle of the night, that his own protective rage, the very love he thought was his greatest strength, was the precise tool used to hide a truth that would have altered the entire course of royal history. The realization that he had been the instrument of his own deception, that his righteous fury was the battering ram that broke down the gates designed to protect him, has sent Harry into a spiral of reactive, almost manic behavior in the quiet, hyper-curated corridors of their Montecito mansion. The silence of that $7 million estate is now punctuated by Harry's relentless, methodical questioning. He is no longer the passive, adoring supporter gazing at his wife during television interviews. Sources close to the household, individuals who have witnessed these exchanges and have been shaken to their core, describe a man who sits for hours at a long oak table with printed timelines and legal documents spread before him like a war map, demanding that Meghan explain the discrepancies between her public biography and the evidentiary threads held by Trevor Engelson. The betrayal Harry feels, the wound that is now hemorrhaging inside his chest, is rooted in the staggering, almost incomprehensible fact that he risked the very integrity of the British monarchy, a 1,000-year-old institution, to shield a past that was not what it seemed. If Meghan entered the royal family under a fundamentally false premise, if she presented a version of her history that was knowingly incomplete, then the vows they took before the Archbishop of Canterbury were not just a personal promise between two people in love. They were an act of institutional fraud against the state, a constitutional wound that would take generations to heal. Harry's reaction to this possibility has been one of profound withdrawal and unilateral action. Actions he is taking entirely alone, without the knowledge of his wife or the Archwell team. He has reportedly spent countless hours in secluded, nondescript hotel suites in Santa Barbara, far away from the watchful eyes of the Archewell staff and the embedded public relations professionals who manage every aspect of the Sussex image. In these sterile, anonymous rooms, he consults with private investigators and legal historians, men and women who specialize in uncovering the kind of past that powerful people pay fortunes to keep hidden. He is trying to piece together the forensic reality of Meghan's early 20s, a task that should have been completed by the security apparatus of the British state a full decade ago. The Duke is haunted by the possibility that the very security services he once trusted, the professionals at MI5 and MI6, were explicitly ordered to stand down by a younger, more volatile, and catastrophically naive version of himself. This creates a terrifying and inescapable loop of guilt that plays on repeat in his mind. He did not just marry a stranger, he actively, passionately, and publicly helped create the very shadows she hid in, and then he locked the door behind them. The tension in California has now reached a breaking point, where the facade of a united front, the hand-holding and the coordinated color palettes, has been entirely and irreparably discarded. Harry is no longer seen at Meghan's side during her various brand launches, her high-profile social gatherings in the gilded circles of the global elite, or her carefully staged philanthropic photo opportunities. Instead, he has become a spectral figure, a man in permanent transit, moving silently between temporary residences and engaging in long, hushed phone calls with legal experts in London whose names he keeps encrypted on a device separate from his personal phone. He is seeking to understand the ancient mechanics of royal trust and what legally happens when that trust is broken at the foundational level, not just in the heart of a husband, but in the constitutional framework of the British state. The dossier provided by Engelson does not just contain photographs or handwritten letters that can be dismissed as forgeries. It contains the raw, unedited metadata of a life that was lived with a different set of rules, a different set of names, and a different set of objectives. For Harry, the most agonizing part of this entire discovery is the catastrophic damage to his own credibility on the world stage. He spent years of his life telling his father, King Charles, and his brother, William, that they were the ones who were wrong, that they were trapped in an ancient and rigid system that could not handle a modern, biracial, independent woman. He accused them of being emotionally stunted and institutionally racist, and he did so on global television in front of an audience of millions. Now, as he looks at the forensic evidence of a hidden past that had been surgically removed from public view, he sees with devastating clarity that their caution was not bigotry, not snobbery, not the paranoid gatekeeping of a cold family, but a solemn duty to the truth, a duty he forced them to abandon at the point of a public relations gun. The Duke is currently existing in a state of professional and personal exile, realizing that the freedom he fought for so savagely in his American paradise was actually a gilded prison built on a bed of elaborate omissions, and that the key to the cell door was thrown away years ago. He is a man who gave up a kingdom for a fairy tale, only to find that the author of that story had been writing a completely different, much darker book all along, and he never bothered to read the footnotes. As the final days of April 2026 unfold, Harry's silence is no longer a conscious choice of privacy or a strategy of dignified retreat. It is the terrifying, hollow silence of a man who has literally lost his voice because he no longer knows which part of his life was real and which part was a performance staged for his benefit. The mission to save Meghan has ended, not with a victory parade, but with a quiet internal collapse. The mission to save himself from the devastating consequences of his own misplaced, weaponized loyalty has just begun. And I need you to stay with me here, because what I am about to reveal next is the part most people do not see coming. The documentary evidence that pushed Harry over the edge was not the secret marriage. It was something far more visceral, something that targeted the deepest, most unhealed wound inside his soul. Pay attention to this next part because it changes everything you will ever believe about this couple. As the narrative of the Sussex marriage continues to unravel beneath the blinding, indifferent sun of Southern California, the psychological toll on Prince Harry has transitioned from a state of initial shock, the numbness of discovering a spouse's financial secrets or hidden debts, into a profound and truly terrifying moral crisis. While the hidden legal unions and the strategic scrubbing of university records provided the intellectual fuel for his growing doubt, the spreadsheets and timelines that kept him up at night, it was a far more visceral and haunting allegation buried deep within the Engelson dossier that shattered his emotional core beyond any hope of repair. Deep within the unredacted pages of Trevor Engelson's reported evidence lies a series of claims so devastating, so fundamentally at odds with the public persona of the woman Harry married, that they strike at the very soul of his identity as a son, as a father, and as a man. The whispers that have long circulated in the darkest, most unmoderated corners of the digital world, whispers that were always dismissed as conspiracy theory, as vile harassment, as the dying gasps of racism, have now allegedly moved from the realm of baseless internet speculation into the cold, hard, forensic reality of Harry's daily life. I am speaking of the whispers of a child from an early, deeply hidden chapter of Meghan's life, a child whose existence was allegedly never disclosed to the British authorities, to the royal family, or to Harry himself. For a man whose entire psychological existence is defined by the primal trauma of maternal loss, the searing image of his mother's coffin, and the fierce, almost militant protection of his own children, Archie and Lilibet, this specific revelation represents not just a betrayal, but what can only be described as the ultimate, world-ending act of deception. Harry has spent the better part of a decade framing himself as the global champion of generational healing. He has sat in countless interviews, his voice trembling with emotion, written a memoir of agonizing, granular detail, and produced multi-part documentary series, all centered on the sacred, non-negotiable duty of a parent to break the cycle of abandonment, pain, and silence. He believed he had found in Meghan a kindred spirit, a woman whose nurturing instinct was not just a personality trait, but the very antidote to the cold, rigid, emotionally sterile distance of the royal institution that had so damaged him. He saw her as the modern, Californian reincarnation of his mother, Princess Diana, a woman of boundless, palpable empathy who would, without a millisecond of hesitation, sacrifice everything for the sanctity and safety of her family. However, the documentation allegedly coming to light in early May of 2026 paints a chillingly different picture, a portrait that feels like a betrayal of everything they both claim to stand for. The dossier reportedly contains evidence, not rumor, not hearsay, but documented evidence, of a choice made in the late 1990s or early 2000s, a time when ambition was the primary and perhaps only driver of Meghan's life. The allegation of a child placed quietly with others or legally distanced in a manner designed to clear an unobstructed path for a Hollywood ascent is more than a tabloid scandal. For Harry, it is a world-destroying revelation that has shattered his past, his present, and his ability to imagine any future. If this is true, if the forensic evidence holds up, then the woman he defended against his own flesh and blood, the woman for whom he cold-shouldered his father and ghosted his lifelong friends, did not just hide a youthful mistake or a messy relationship. She allegedly committed the one single act that Harry, in the deepest and most protected chamber of his heart, finds absolutely and irrevocably unforgivable. The intentional, calculated abandonment of a child for the sake of social elevation and career advancement. The reaction from the Duke has been described by household staff who have witnessed the aftermath as a total and terrifying psychological withdrawal that mimics the symptoms of profound grief. Harry is no longer just angry. Anger implies a certain level of energetic engagement, a desire to fight. Harry is grieving. He is grieving the loss of the woman he thought he knew, the partner he believed he had built a new world with. He is grieving the loss of the moral high ground he has occupied with such vocal certainty since the year 2020. Sources indicate that during the most recent and most brutal of their private confrontations, a fight that staff members say felt more like a funeral than an argument, Harry's voice, ragged and broken, could be heard echoing through the marble hallways of the Montecito estate, demanding to know how the empathy Meghan so expertly mirrored back to him during their whirlwind courtship The soft eyes and the perfectly timed reassurances could have been anything other than a calculated, professionally executed performance. He is reportedly obsessed, and this is the word used by those who have spoken with him, with the horrifying idea that he was specifically targeted because of his publicly documented vulnerability, that his well-documented and deeply exploited longing for a mother figure like Diana was the precise psychological lever used to capture his loyalty, his checkbook, and his passport. This emotional devastation has manifested in a series of desperate, unilateral actions that Harry is taking in total secrecy. He has reportedly instructed a separate, airtight team of private investigators, individuals who have never worked for Archewell and never will, to look into the names, dates, and timelines mentioned in the dossier, specifically searching for any biological links that were systematically erased from the official Sussex biography. He is a man haunted by the possibility that while he was mourning his mother on the world stage, using her memory as a shield for his new life, and fighting to protect Meghan's public image with every tool at his disposal, she was hiding a legacy, a living, breathing human legacy that contradicts every single value they have ever publicly preached under the bright lights of the Archewell brand. The hypocrisy is so vast, so cosmic in its implications, that Harry reportedly feels he has become an unwilling and humiliated participant in a grotesque deception perpetrated against the global public who look to them as moral leaders. His isolation has reached a critical stage that now worries those few people who still have his unlisted number. He is no longer seen at the high-end social clubs, the exclusive private member gatherings, or the carefully stage-managed philanthropic meetings that form the backbone of the Sussex brand in California. Instead, he spends his long, sleepless nights in the guest wing of the mansion, a space he has turned into a kind of shrine, surrounded by old, faded photographs of his mother, Princess Diana. He sits there for hours, studying her face, trying desperately to reconcile the image of the woman who raised him, the woman whose heart was so famously big, with the woman who now legally shares his name and the legacy of the Spencer family. The comparison that once brought him a sense of peace and continuity now brings him a tidal wave of profound and nauseating shame. He feels he has insulted the memory of his mother by invoking her name to shield a personal history that stands in direct and irreconcilable opposition to everything her character represented. Furthermore, Harry is now grappling, late at night with a glass of something he never used to drink, with the catastrophic impact this will have on his standing with the British public, a public he once dismissed as a lost cause. He realizes with a clarity that burns that his brother William and his father, King Charles, were not just being difficult, stubborn, or traditionally minded. They were guarding a 1,000-year-old institution against a level of calculated, laser-focused ambition that Harry was too blinded by infatuation and a savior complex to even perceive, let alone acknowledge. The Duke is now reportedly in an almost constant state of communication with his independent legal counsel in the United Kingdom, not to plan a triumphant return or a media-friendly comeback, but to desperately try and understand the full extent of his personal legal liability in what has now become a potential constitutional crisis. He is a man who walked away from a kingdom for a dream, only to wake up, blinking in the harsh California sun, and realize that he is trapped in a nightmare of his own making, financed by his own inheritance, and scripted by someone he no longer recognizes. The moral atomic bomb has detonated directly over his home. And as Harry surveys the smoldering wreckage of his life in Montecito, he realizes that the most dangerous, the most duplicitous, and the most effective enemy he ever faced was never the press, never the palace machinery, but the secrets that were hidden, not in a distant archive, but in his own bed. The fairy tale is dead, and it has been replaced by a forensic search for the truth that Harry is no longer certain he has the psychological strength to survive. But here is where it gets truly interesting, because Harry does not just collapse, he begins to move, and the direction he moves in will leave you absolutely speechless. As the psychological walls of the Montecito estate continue to close in, making the mansion feel less like a sanctuary and more like a maximum security prison designed by an interior decorator, Prince Harry has reportedly initiated a series of clandestine, high-stakes maneuvers that mark the most significant personal break from his wife since their explosive departure from royal life in 2020. By the first week of May 2026, the Duke of Sussex has moved beyond mere internal questioning, beyond the silent staring at old photographs, and has begun reaching out tentatively, fearfully, to the very institution he once stood on a global stage and vowed to dismantle and fundamentally reform. Sources deep within the diplomatic and royal circles of London, individuals who would never normally speak about such sensitive matters, suggest that Harry has established a secure, encrypted, and intensely private line of communication with high-level officials at Buckingham Palace, and even more tellingly and more poignantly, with the private office of his brother, the Prince of Wales. These are not the self-righteous calls of a rebellious son seeking a media-friendly photo-op reconciliation or a fresh infusion of cash. These are the desperate, hushed, and occasionally tearful inquiries of a man who realizes he has been operating without a full set of facts, like a blindfolded pilot in a storm, for nearly a decade. The nature of these secret overtures is focused almost entirely on the forensic, granular details of the 2017 vetting process, a process he now views as the single most catastrophic failure of his life. Harry is reportedly haunted, possessed even, by a single, agonizing, and recurring question that he whispers to his lawyers in the middle of the night. What did the British intelligence services actually know? And why, in the name of everything that is sacred, was he not told? Reports from insiders who have been briefed on these communications suggest that Harry has been engaging in long, emotionally draining late-night conversations with a select few trusted former aides, individuals who remain loyal to him despite the scorched earth exit he conducted. Through these fragile channels, he is desperately seeking to uncover the unredacted, unspun truth about the background reports that MI5 and MI6 compiled before the wedding at St. George's Chapel, the reports he once dismissed as irrelevant bureaucracy. He is beginning to suspect, and this suspicion is now solidifying into a terrible certainty, that his own aggressive, vocal, and highly public intervention, his threats issued through lawyers and public relations representatives to label the entire institution as biased and racist, created a devastating, chilling effect that forced the security services to bury certain red flags, certain screaming alarm bells regarding Meghan's past social connections, financial entanglements, and sealed legal history in the United States. In a move that signifies a total, complete, and irreversible loss of trust in his current California-based inner circle, Harry has bypassed the Archwell legal apparatus entirely. He does not even tell them meetings are happening. He is now being quietly advised by a boutique white shoe law firm in London that specializes exclusively in international family law and the extremely complex, ancient constitutional implications of royal marriages and their potential dissolution. This unilateral action has reportedly caused a massive and unbridgeable rift within the Sussex household, as Meghan and her longtime team of fixers and brand managers realize, with ice-cold panic, that they no longer have any control whatsoever over Harry's narrative, his emotional state, or his physical movements. The Duke is no longer sharing his daily itinerary or his communication logs with his wife, creating a state of professional and personal Cold War within the sprawling, 16-bedroom Mediterranean-style mansion that was supposed to be their forever home. He is often observed by staff in the early gray hours of the morning, pacing the manicured grounds and the gravel pathways, with a secondary encrypted mobile phone pressed to his ear, speaking in hushed, urgent, and occasionally broken tones to contacts in a time zone 8 hours ahead, people who knew him when he was just Captain Wales. Perhaps the most public, and certainly the most visually startling, sign of this profound detachment is Harry's increasing and now total absence from the glossy, hyper-monetized events that were meticulously designed to define the Sussex's new era of global influence and financial independence. While Meghan continues to push forward with her lifestyle brand, her cooking shows, and various venture capital media deals, projecting an image of flawless, independent success, Harry has become a complete non-entity in her carefully curated promotional materials. The man who was once her constant shadow, her most vocal and aggressively protective supporter, the one who would lean over and whisper in her ear at public events, has simply vanished from the frame. Insiders with direct knowledge of the production schedules claim that Harry has flatly refused to participate in any further filming for their commercial projects, stating in a cold, final tone that he cannot and will not represent a version of his life, a love story that he no longer believes to be true. This refusal is not just a domestic dispute about schedules, it is a financial, strategic, and existential catastrophe for the entire Sussex brand, a brand which relies entirely and exclusively on the visual, emotional, and narrative image of their unbreakable, us against the world romantic bond. Without that bond, the product is worthless. The emotional weight of these secret overtures to London is immense, and you would have to have a heart of stone not to feel the tragedy of it. For Harry, reaching out to William in this fashion, hat in hand, is an admission of total, unconditional, and humiliating defeat. It is a silent, unspoken acknowledgement that his brother's initial, panicked warnings about the speed and intensity of the relationship were not rooted in personal snobbery or sibling jealousy, but in a deep, institutional, and intuitive wisdom that Harry was too spiritually intoxicated to hear. The Duke is reportedly existing in a state of profound and unprecedented humility, a word never before associated with him in his post-royal life, asking the palace not for forgiveness or financial support, but simply to share any and all documentation they quietly hold regarding the Engelson dossier. He is no longer fighting for a seat at the royal table or a slice of the sovereign grant. He is fighting for the oxygen of clarity in a life that has become a suffocating, disorienting maze of mirrors and smoke. This tectonic shift in Harry's behavior is also being reflected in his interactions with the local community in Montecito. He has been spotted on several occasions dining completely alone at secluded, out-of-the-way restaurants or driving his car solo along the Pacific Coast Highway, far away from the usual paparazzi haunts and the celebrity hotspots. He is a man in a state of deep, almost monastic reflection, seemingly trying to reacquaint himself with the version of Harry that existed before the world became a curated, monetized Instagram feed. The Harry who flew Apache helicopters and played rugby in the mud. The conspicuous absence of his wedding ring, once a constant and defiant symbol of his break from the family firm, a middle finger in metal form, is now a permanent and entirely natural fixture of his new solitary identity. As the king prepares to receive the full, undiluted weight of the forensic evidence being presented by Trevor Engelson's legal team, Harry is positioning himself not as a co-defendant standing shoulder to shoulder with his wife, but as a primary victim of the same elaborate systemic omissions that were perpetrated against the British state. He is preparing, emotionally and legally, for the very real possibility that the entire foundation of his marriage, the event that defined his adult life, was built on a series of calculated, premeditated deceptions. And he is looking to the crown, the thing he once rejected with such performative disdain, as the only institution on the planet that has the archival power and the constitutional authority to provide him with the unvarnished, forensic, cold, hard truth. This is the beginning of a tactical retreat unlike anything the modern monarchy has ever witnessed. Harry is no longer trying to change or modernize the monarchy. He is trying to find a way to return to its formidable ancient protection, realizing that the freedom he sought in the palm trees of California was a seductive and dangerous illusion, and the woman he sought it with was a stranger he himself helped to create and unleash upon the world. The bridge to London, the one he personally and theatrically soaked in gasoline and lit with a match on the Oprah Winfrey soundstage, is now being frantically and desperately rebuilt, plank by plank, by the very man who started the fire. And that is a story of human fallibility that even Shakespeare would struggle to script.